Hello there. Life has a way of teaching us lessons through the people we hold closest. Sometimes these lessons are painful, but they are always valuable. Today, let us talk about one such lesson. Keisha stood by the fresh grave, clutching a bouquet of white chrysanthemums to her chest. A cold wind whipped the hem of her black dress, but she did not notice the chill or the fine mist of rain settling on her hair like silver dust. Her mother had passed away quietly in her sleep, as if she had simply grown tired of living after Keisha's father left them 15 years ago. Now Keisha was left completely alone, the last of her line, the sole heiress to everything the family had accumulated over 3 generations. Marcus stood beside her, holding a large umbrella over them. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a neatly trimmed beard and attentive brown eyes, he always knew how to be there at the right moment. 8 years ago, that very trait had won Keisha over. He had appeared when she was going through a rough breakup with her first love and surrounded her with such care that she had not even noticed herself falling in love. "Let's go home, baby," Marcus said softly, touching her elbow. "You're soaked to the bone." Keisha nodded, casting one last look at the granite slab with her mother's photograph. Eleanor Vance looked out from the oval portrait, calm and slightly sad, as if she knew something she hadn't had time to tell her daughter. It was warm inside the car. Marcus turned on the heated seats and some soft jazz. Keisha leaned back against the headrest and closed her eyes. "The lawyer called," Marcus began cautiously. "He says we need to come in this week to sign the paperwork." "Not now," Keisha asked. "Let me just be for a few days at least." "Of course, honey, of course." He covered her hand with his, and Keisha felt the familiar warmth. Marcus was always so reliable, understanding, and patient. Sometimes it seemed to her that she did not deserve him. The house welcomed them with silence. The 2-story colonial on the outskirts of town, which Keisha had inherited from her grandmother, looked lonely in the gray light of the rainy afternoon. Marcus helped her off with her wet coat, sat her in the armchair by the fireplace, and brought a blanket. "I'll make some tea." Keisha looked at the fire and thought about her mother. In recent months, they had seen each other rarely. Eleanor had been living in the country house, the same one where Keisha had spent her childhood. A large plot of land, an old garden, a pond. All of this now belonged to her, plus the condo downtown that her mother rented out, bank accounts, and stocks. The lawyer had mentioned an approximate sum, and Keisha's head had spun. She had never thought about money. She worked as an art historian in a gallery, earned a modest salary, and was quite content with life. Her phone vibrated. Keisha glanced at the screen. Tasha. "Keisha girl, how are you?" Her friend's voice sounded anxious. "I wanted to make it to the funeral, but I got stuck on this business trip. The flight was delayed for 6 hours. Can you believe that?" "It's okay, Tasha. I understand." "You aren't alone there? Is Marcus with you?" "Yes, he's here." "Thank God. Hang in there, sweetie. I'll fly in the day after tomorrow. We definitely have to see each other. You need me, and I need you. 20 years of friendship is no joke." Keisha smiled faintly. She and Tasha had met back in high school, gone through everything together, first crushes, exams, disappointments, victories. Tasha was the sister Keisha never had. "Thanks, Tasha. I'll be waiting." Marcus returned with tea and toast. Noticing the phone in her hands, he asked, "Tasha?" "Yes, she's flying in the day after tomorrow." Something flickered in his eyes. Keisha did not have time to understand exactly what it was. He quickly looked away and busied himself with the fireplace, tossing on a log. "It's good that you have a friend like that," he said without turning around. The following days merged into one gray stream. Keisha almost never left the house. She slept a lot and ate little. Marcus took time off work to be close by. He cooked, cleaned, answered calls from people offering condolences, and did everything to shield his wife from daily cares. On the 4th day after the funeral, he gently reminded her about the lawyer. "Keisha, I understand it's hard for you, but the documents won't wait. There are deadlines, you know." She knew. Her mother had been a meticulous woman and had left her will in perfect order. All property passed to her only daughter, Keisha Vance Thorne. There were no other heirs. Her father had died long ago, and there were no brothers or sisters. Distant relatives, if they existed, had never made themselves known. "Okay," Keisha said. "We'll go tomorrow." The law firm was located in an old building with high ceilings and creaky hardwood floors. An elderly attorney in thick-rimmed glasses spread a stack of documents before Keisha. "So, Mrs. Thorne, your mother left you a residential home with a plot of land measuring 5 acres, a 3-bedroom condo downtown, a vehicle, and bank deposits totaling." He named a figure, and Keisha felt dizzy again. "There are also shares in several companies and jewelry stored in a safe deposit box." Marcus sat next to her, listening intently. His face remained calm, but Keisha noticed how the knuckles of his fingers, gripping the armrest of the chair, turned white. "To accept the inheritance, you need to sign a number of documents," the attorney continued. "I must also inform you that according to state law, in the event of your death, in the absence of children and a will, all property will pass to your spouse as the sole heir." Keisha nodded absently. She was thinking about her mother, about the empty childhood home, about how she was supposed to live now with all this wealth she absolutely did not need. Marcus drove her home in silence. Only when they reached the house did he suddenly say, "Maybe we should go somewhere, to the ocean, for example. You need a distraction." "It's winter, Marcus." "So what? We'll fly south? Florida, maybe. It's warm there, sunny, you'll feel better." Keisha shook her head. "Later. I need to sort through Mom's things, and Tasha is flying in tomorrow." Again, that strange expression in his eyes. Quick, elusive. "Yes, of course, Tasha." That evening, Keisha could not fall asleep for a long time. She lay in the dark, listening to her husband's steady breathing, thinking about how strangely life was arranged. Just a month ago, she was an ordinary woman with ordinary worries, and now she was a wealthy heiress who had lost her last close relative. The money brought no joy. Rather, it was frightening. Keisha had never known how to handle large sums, didn't understand investments or stocks. She would have to figure it all out, look for a manager, or trust it to Marcus. She turned onto her side and looked at her sleeping husband. In the moonlight, his face seemed unfamiliar. Sharp shadows emphasized his cheekbones, making his lips look thin, almost cruel. Keisha blinked, and the illusion vanished. Before her was Marcus again, her reliable, loving husband. She closed her eyes and fell into a restless sleep. Tasha appeared on the doorstep with a huge bouquet of lilies and a box of Keisha's favorite chocolates. Tall, slender, with a mass of curly hair and bright green eyes, she always looked as if she had just stepped off a magazine cover. Even after a long flight, her dark skin glowed, and her smile remained flawless. "Keisha!" She hugged her friend tightly, enveloping her in a cloud of expensive perfume. "Lord, I was so worried. That stupid plane. Then the connection was delayed. I almost lost my mind." Keisha buried her face in her shoulder, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. Next to Tasha, she didn't have to pretend to be strong. She could just be herself, confused, frightened, lonely. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "Don't talk nonsense. How could I not come?" Marcus walked out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "Tasha? Hey, tea, coffee?" "Coffee, if it's not too much trouble. Black, no sugar." They went into the living room. Tasha sat on the sofa next to Keisha and took her hand. "Tell me, how are you holding up?" Keisha shrugged. "I don't know. Everything seems fine, and then this wave hits me. I wake up at night and realize she's gone and never will be here again." "I know, honey. I know." Marcus brought the coffee and placed the cup in front of Tasha. Their fingers touched for a moment, and Keisha noticed her friend quickly pull her hand away. Strange. Usually, Tasha behaved easily and naturally with Marcus, like an old acquaintance. "I'm going to the store," Marcus said. "You two surely need to talk. Girl stuff and all that." When the door closed behind him, Tasha noticeably relaxed. She leaned back against the sofa and sipped her coffee. So, tell me about the inheritance. I heard there's a whole fortune involved. How do you know? Marcus texted me. We message sometimes. Tasha waved her hand dismissively. Just small talk. He asked when I was landing, told me about the lawyer. Keisha frowned. Marcus had never mentioned texting Tasha. Although, why not? They had known each other for years. Tasha was her best friend. It would be strange if they didn't communicate at all. Yes, Mom left a lot, she said. I didn't even imagine how much she had. She never talked about it. Eleanor Vance was a private woman. Remember how she surprised everyone when she sold that condo? Nobody knew she was even planning to. Keisha remembered. 5 years ago, her mother had suddenly sold the large apartment where the family sometimes stayed and moved to their country house for good. She explained it simply. She was tired of the city noise. She wanted silence and fresh air. The money from the sale, as it turned out, she had invested in stocks that had tripled in value over those years. Now all of this is mine, Keisha shook her head. I have no idea what to do with it. Live, Tasha smiled. Just live, travel, buy beautiful things. Don't think about money. Isn't that what we dreamed of when we were young? We dreamed of love and adventure, not money. Money gives you the freedom for adventure, silly. They talked until evening. Tasha spoke about her work. She organized large corporate events and was constantly flying around on business trips. Her personal life, as always, was turbulent and confusing. Another romance had ended in nothing. A new one hadn't started yet. I envy you, Tasha sighed. You have Marcus. Reliable, faithful, caring. They don't make men like that anymore. You'll find someone too. Keisha stroked her hand. You just need to wait. I've been waiting for 35 years. How much longer? Marcus returned with bags from the grocery store. He cooked dinner, shrimp scampi, Keisha's favorite dish. At the table, the conversation revolved around trivial things. The weather, the news, mutual acquaintances. Keisha watched her husband and friend trying to understand what was bothering her. They behaved impeccably politely, but there was some tension between them, like two people who know something important about each other and are carefully hiding it. After dinner, Tasha started getting ready to go to her hotel. Stay with us, Keisha offered. The guest room is free. I don't want to impose. You're having a hard enough time as it is. You never impose. Stay. Tasha cast a quick glance at Marcus. He shrugged. Keisha's right. There's plenty of room. Well, if you insist. That night, Keisha couldn't sleep again. She got up, threw on a robe, and went down to the kitchen for water. Passing the guest room, she heard muffled voices. Tasha was talking to someone on the phone. No, not now. It's impossible. Yes, I understand, but wait a little longer. Everything will be decided soon. Keisha froze. Her friend's voice sounded strangely tense, almost frightened. Who was she talking to at 3 a.m, and what was supposed to be decided soon? She quietly walked into the kitchen, trying not to make the floorboards creak. She poured water and stood by the window, looking out at the dark yard. Tasha probably just had some work problems. She organized events, after all. Something always went off plan there. Someone wasn't happy, something fell through. No need to work herself up. When she returned to the bedroom, Marcus wasn't in bed. Keisha stopped in the doorway, listening. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. She lay down and pretended to be asleep. Marcus returned a few minutes later, carefully lay down next to her, trying not to wake his wife. He smelled of mint toothpaste and, for some reason, cigarette smoke. Strange, he had quit smoking 3 years ago. In the morning at breakfast, everything was as usual. Tasha joked. Marcus smiled. Keisha drank coffee and thought that it was time to snap out of this numbness. Life goes on, and she needed to do something with it. I want to go to Mom's country house, she said. To sort through her things? I can't put it off any longer. Let's go together, Tasha suggested. I'll help. I would go too, Marcus said. But I have a call with partners at 3. Can't reschedule it. It's okay, Keisha patted his hand. Tasha and I will handle it. It's women's work, sorting through old photos and crying over them. Her mother's house greeted them with the smell of dust and wilted flowers. One of the neighbors had left a bouquet on the porch, and it had dried up, never having waited for the mistress of the house. Keisha opened the windows, letting in the frosty air, and set to work. They cleared out closets, went through papers, put things in boxes, some for the trash, some for charity, some to keep as keepsakes. Tasha worked silently, with concentration, and Keisha was grateful to her for that silence. Words weren't needed right now. In an old dresser, they found a small box of letters. Keisha opened it and froze. These were letters from her father, written to her mom before the wedding. Yellowed paper, faded ink, words of love, promises of eternal fidelity. "Look," she handed a letter to Tasha. "Dad wrote to Mom every day when he went away for work. Can you imagine that kind of love?" Tasha took the letter, but didn't read it. She just held it in her hands, staring somewhere off to the side. "That kind of love doesn't exist anymore," she said quietly. "Nowadays, everything is different. People marry for calculation, live out of habit, cheat at the first opportunity." "Not everyone," Keisha objected. "Marcus and I—" "Yes, you and Marcus." Tasha stood up abruptly. "I'm going to check the attic. There's probably a ton of junk up there." She walked out without waiting for an answer. Keisha watched her go, feeling anxiety growing inside. Something was wrong. Something was seriously wrong. By evening, they finished the first floor and got ready to go home. Tasha hadn't spoken much all day, answered in monosyllables, and avoided looking Keisha in the eye. In the car, the silence became completely unbearable. "Tasha, what is going on?" Keisha finally asked. "You haven't been yourself all day." "Nothing, just tired." "Don't lie to me. We've known each other 20 years. I see when you're upset." Tasha gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. "Keisha, please, not now. I need to figure something out. We'll talk later, I promise." "You're scaring me." "Don't be afraid. Everything will be fine." But her voice trembled. A week passed. Tasha flew back, citing urgent work, and Keisha was left alone with her husband and her doubts. Something had changed between them. She felt it with every cell of her body, but couldn't understand exactly what. Marcus was still attentive and caring, but now his care seemed somewhat mechanical, as if he were performing a mandatory routine. She spent a lot of time at her mother's house, sorting through endless piles of things. This activity was calming, distracting her from heavy thoughts. Every photograph found, every letter, every trinket told a story about a life she knew only partially, about a woman who was her mother, and at the same time remained a mystery. One of those days, rummaging through an old secretary desk, Keisha found a diary, a thick notebook in a leather binding covered in her mother's small handwriting. The entries began 20 years ago and ended a month before her death. Keisha flipped through the pages, recognizing and not recognizing her mother. Here was a different woman, not the restrained, quiet Eleanor she was used to seeing. On the pages of the diary, her mother was alive, passionate, sometimes desperate. She wrote about her fears, about her love for her daughter, about the bitterness of loneliness after her husband's death. One entry caught Keisha's attention, dated 3 years prior. It was short, but alarming. "Got to know Keisha's husband a bit better. He came alone without her. Says she's at work, but he wanted to visit his mother-in-law. A strange man, too polite, too proper. There is something insincere about him. His eyes don't smile when his lips do. I hope I am mistaken. For Keisha's sake, I hope." Keisha reread the entry several times. Marcus had visited her mother. He had never mentioned that. She continued flipping through. Another entry, a year later. Marcus was here again. Asked about the house, about the land. Was interested if there are other heirs. I answered honestly, only Keisha. He smiled and said that was wonderful, that he was glad his wife had such a remarkable mother. But I looked at him and thought, you aren't glad that I'm remarkable. You're glad that I'm alone, that after me, everything will go to her. And after her? The entry cut off. Keisha felt her hands turn cold. Did her mother suspect something, or was this just the paranoia of a lonely elderly woman? She searched further but found nothing else about Marcus. The last entries were about illness, doctors, humility before the inevitable, and not a word about suspicions. That evening, Keisha returned home in a strange state. Her head buzzed with thoughts, her heart beat unevenly. Marcus met her in the hallway, helped her take off her coat. "You're pale. Is everything all right?" "Yes, just tired." "You need to rest. I made dinner." At the table, Keisha secretly watched her husband. She watched how he cut his meat, how he brought the fork to his mouth, how he wiped his lips with a napkin. She looked for what her mother had seen: insincerity, falseness, calculation. But she saw only the familiar face, familiar gestures of a familiar person. "I'm going crazy," she thought. "Grief is making me paranoid." "By the way," Marcus said, "we need to resolve the issue with Mom's house. Are you planning to sell it?" "I don't know. Haven't thought about it yet." "Maybe you should. Maintaining 2 houses is expensive and a hassle, and the money could be invested in something profitable." "For example?" He shrugged. "There are various options. I can consult with my financial advisor." "You have a financial advisor?" "Well, yeah. I don't tell you about all my business." That sounded sharper than usual. Keisha looked up and met his gaze. Cold, evaluating. For a second, it seemed to her that a stranger was sitting before her. "Sorry," he softened immediately. "Didn't mean to be rude. I'm just thinking about our future, about your future. I want everything to be good for you." "For us," Keisha corrected. "Good for us." "Yes, of course, for us." At night, she lay awake again, listening to her husband's quiet breathing. Thoughts tangled, crawled over each other. Her mother's diary, Marcus's strange visits, Tasha's tense behavior. It all added up to some kind of picture, but Keisha couldn't quite see it whole. The phone on the nightstand lit up silently. A message. Keisha carefully picked it up and looked at the screen. It was Marcus's phone. They were lying close, and she had confused them in the dark. A message from Tasha. "I can't take this anymore. Call me when you can." Her heart stopped. Keisha looked at the screen, afraid to breathe. Why was Tasha texting her husband at 3 in the morning? What were they talking about? What was it she couldn't take anymore? Marcus stirred in his sleep, and Keisha quickly put the phone back. She lay down, closed her eyes, pretended to be asleep. Her mind refused to accept the obvious. No, it's some mistake, a misunderstanding. There must be an explanation. In the morning, she behaved as usual, drank coffee, smiled, kissed her husband before he left for work. But inside, something had broken. A crack ran through her very heart, and Keisha felt it getting wider with every hour. At work, she couldn't concentrate. She sat in her office, staring at paintings she was supposed to be describing for a catalog, and saw only that message: "I can't take this anymore." What did it mean? An affair, an intrigue, a conspiracy? At lunch, Tasha called. Keisha looked at the name lighting up and couldn't force herself to answer. After the 5th ring, she declined the call. A minute later, a message arrived. "Keisha, sweetie, we need to talk. Urgent. Call back, please." She didn't call back. That evening, Marcus suggested going out of town for the weekend. "Let's rent a cabin in the mountains," he said. "Just you and me. Fresh air, fireplace, silence. You need to unwind." "I was thinking of sorting through the rest of Mom's things." "That can wait. You are more important." He took her hand, and Keisha looked at their intertwined fingers. For 8 years she had held this hand. For 8 years she had believed this man. Could it all have been a lie? "Okay," she said. "Let's go." A plan matured on its own. She would go with him, be close, observe, search for the truth, and then she would decide what to do. They left on Saturday morning. Marcus drove. Keisha looked out the window at the fields rushing by, covered in the first snow. A beautiful landscape, a peaceful picture. And inside, fear, cold, sticky, unrelenting. The cabin turned out to be cozy, a log structure with large windows and a deck. Marcus lit the fireplace, took out some wine. Everything like in a romantic movie, perfect scenery for a perfect lie. To us, he raised his glass. To our future. Keisha clinked glasses with him and took a sip. The wine was tart, with a bitter aftertaste. Marcus, she said, are you happy with me? He looked at her in surprise. Of course. Why do you ask? Just sometimes it seems to me that I don't know you, that in 8 years you remain a mystery to me. All people are mysteries. He smiled. That's what makes life interesting. Do you love me? A pause, short, almost imperceptible, but Keisha caught it. I am with you, he said finally. Isn't that an answer? No, she thought. That is not an answer. That is avoiding an answer. That night they made love, and Keisha cried silently in the dark so he wouldn't see. Cried for what she was losing, for what she could no longer believe in. The next day they walked in the woods, had lunch in a small restaurant, talked about trifles. Marcus was tender and attentive, and at times Keisha almost convinced herself that she had invented everything, that her mother was mistaken, that Tasha's message meant nothing, that her husband was still the same man she had married. And then they drove home. The road wound in a serpentine path between the hills. Marcus drove confidently, holding the steering wheel with one hand. Quiet music played. Outside the window, it was getting dark. Let's cut through the old route, he said. It's faster that way. Keisha nodded, looking at her phone. 3 missed calls from Tasha. One message. I beg you, answer. You are in danger. In danger? What did that mean? She wanted to ask, wanted to show Marcus, wanted to demand an explanation, but she didn't have time. The car suddenly skidded sharply. Keisha screamed, clutching the door handle. The world spun. Trees, sky, earth merged into one wild kaleidoscope. Impact. The screech of metal. Pain, sharp, blinding, and darkness. The first thing Keisha felt was cold. Piercing, burning cold penetrating through her clothes, through her skin, to her very bones. Then came the pain, dull, throbbing, spreading throughout her body. She tried to move, but her body didn't obey. Where was she? What happened? Memory returned in fragments. The road, the winding path, the car skidding, the impact, accident. They had been in an accident. She had been thrown from the car onto the grass. Keisha lay motionless, afraid to open her eyes. Her head was splitting. In her mouth she tasted the metallic tang of blood. She tried to assess the damage. Arms seemed to move, legs too. That meant her spine was intact. That was good already. And then she heard a voice, Marcus's voice, calm, businesslike, completely unlike the voice of a man who had just survived a crash. Hello, 911, accident on the highway. Old route, about mile marker 15. Yes, there are injuries. The car went off the cliff. Come quickly. He was calling for help. Thank God. Doctors would arrive soon. Take her to the hospital. Everything would be fine. Footsteps. Marcus approached closer. Keisha felt his fingers touch her neck, checking for a pulse. She didn't breathe, didn't move, instinctively freezing. She heard the sound of another number being dialed. That's it, darling, Marcus uttered in a completely different tone, soft, almost affectionate. But from that affection, Keisha's blood ran cold. She is no longer an obstacle. Tomorrow I alone will inherit the mother-in-law's estate. The world stopped. Keisha lay with her eyes closed, and every word pricked her like a red-hot needle. No obstacle. Inheritance. He set it all up. The accident wasn't accidental. And then another voice came from the speaker nearby, female, painfully familiar. It was hard to hear, but still distinguishable. And if she survives? Tasha. It was Tasha. She won't survive, Marcus answered confidently. I checked her pulse. Very weak. By the time the ambulance arrives, it will all be over. Keisha stopped breathing, literally held the air in her lungs, forced her heart to beat quieter, slower, pretended to be dead like she had never done anything in her life. Are you sure? Tasha's voice trembled on the phone. "Marcus, if something goes wrong—" "Nothing will go wrong. I thought it all through. Ice, slippery road, tragic accident, no suspicions." Footsteps. Marcus was walking around the car. Keisha heard his voice, but the words reached her as if through cotton. Shock prevented clear thinking. Husband, best friend, conspiracy, murder. "I feel sick from all this," came Tasha's words when Marcus approached closer again. "I didn't think it would be like this. You said you'd just get a divorce. Take half." "Half?" Marcus scoffed. "Did you see how much money is there? In a divorce, I'd get pathetic crumbs. This way, everything. The house, the condo, the accounts, the stocks, all mine." "Ours," he corrected himself. "Ours." "Don't call me that, honey. Not right now." "Why? This is what we wanted. 3 years I waited for this moment. 3 years I played the role of the ideal husband, tolerated this naive fool with her eternal talks about art and feelings." Naive fool. That's who she had been to him all these years. Not a wife, not a beloved, just a means to an end. "The police will be there soon," Tasha said. "You need to—" "I know, I'm hanging up. We'll talk later." "Yes, I'll call when it's all over." Footsteps receded. The car door slammed. Marcus walked away. Keisha lay motionless, feeling a tear run down her cheek. She couldn't stop it, couldn't even wipe it away, only hoped Marcus wouldn't notice. He returned, leaned over her again. Keisha felt his breath on her face, warm, even, calm, the breath of a man who had just committed attempted murder and wasn't nervous at all. "I'm sorry, Keisha," he whispered. "You were a good wife, just not rich enough. And now everything will change." He walked away. Keisha heard him take out a cigarette, click a lighter. The smell of smoke drifted in the cold air. Minutes stretched endlessly. Keisha lay there, trying to breathe as infrequently and shallowly as possible. Her body was stiff, wounds ached, but she didn't dare move. Not now, not while he was nearby. In the distance, a siren wailed. Police or ambulance, it didn't matter. Help was coming. Marcus walked up to Keisha again. She felt him take her hand, press it to his cheek. "My poor wife," he uttered loudly with anguish in his voice. "Keisha, baby, hang on. Help is already coming." The perfect actor, the perfect liar. Vehicles stopped, doors slammed, people shouted. Someone pushed Marcus aside, leaned over Keisha. Professional hands felt her body, checked pulse, pupils. "She's alive!" a voice shouted. "Pulse is weak, but it's there. Stretcher, quick!" Keisha allowed herself to exhale, allowed herself to live. She was loaded into the ambulance. Doctors bustled around, set up an IV, measured blood pressure. Marcus tried to climb in after her, but he was stopped. "You're injured. You need help too." "I'm fine. That's my wife. I have to be with her." "You'll ride in the second ambulance." "Don't worry, we'll take care of her." Doors closed. The vehicle started moving. Keisha lay with her eyes closed and thought, feverishly, confusedly, desperately. What to do? How to get out of this nightmare? She knew the truth. She knew her husband wanted to kill her. She knew her best friend was his accomplice. But how to prove it? Her word against theirs. No witnesses, no evidence. In the hospital, she was examined. Concussion, multiple bruises, cracked rib. Serious, but not fatal. "You got lucky," the doctor said. Keisha nearly laughed. Lucky. Her husband had just tried to kill her. Marcus appeared an hour later, with a bandaged head and a scratch on his cheek. Light injuries, practically nothing. Of course, he knew there would be a crash. He prepared, was buckled in, unlike her. He knew about her careless habit of riding without a seatbelt in the passenger seat, especially when it wasn't far. "Keisha!" He rushed to her bed, grabbed her hand. "Thank God you're alive. I was so scared when the car skidded. Thought I'd lose you." She looked at him and saw a stranger, a man she had never actually known. 8 years of marriage, thousands of days and nights together, and all of it was a lie. Every word, every gesture, every kiss. What happened? she asked in a weak voice. I don't remember. Black ice. The car skidded on the turn. I lost control. We flew off the road. Forgive me, baby. It's my fault. The tears in his eyes looked so real. His voice trembled so sincerely. If she hadn't heard that conversation, she would have believed him unconditionally. You're not to blame, Keisha said. It was an accident. He kissed her hand, pressed his cheek to her palm. She stared at the ceiling and thought about how she was going to live now and survive. 3 days in the hospital became the longest of Keisha's life. She lay in the ward, surrounded by the smell of medicine and the quiet beeping of monitors, and planned. For the first time in her life, she was thinking not about feelings, but about survival. Marcus came every day, brought flowers, fruit, books, sat nearby for hours, held her hand, told her how much he missed her at home. The perfect, caring husband. Keisha played her role, the weak, confused victim of an accident. She smiled at his jokes, thanked him for his care, said she loved him. Every word cost her effort. Every touch caused nausea. But she endured, because she understood. As long as he thinks she knows nothing, she is safe. Relatively safe. On the second day, Tasha called. Keisha? Her friend's voice rang with feigned concern. Lord, I just found out. Marcus texted that you guys got into an accident. How are you? What happened? Keisha gripped the phone until her knuckles turned white. Tasha, her Tasha, childhood friend, almost a sister, the woman who stood next to her husband and asked, And if she survives? I'm okay, she answered in an even voice. Concussion, bruises, nothing serious. Thank God, I was so worried. Do you want me to come stay? I can take time off. No need. Marcus is here. He's taking care of me. A pause. Short. Barely noticeable. Yes, of course, Marcus. He's a good husband. The best. Tasha said something else about work, about the weather, about some nonsense. Keisha listened to her voice and tried to understand. When? When did her friend turn into a traitor? When did the affair with Marcus begin? How many years had they laughed at her behind her back? After the conversation, she sat motionless for a long time, staring at the wall. The pain from Tasha's betrayal was even stronger than from her husband's. With Marcus, everything was clear. He married her for money that didn't exist yet, but he knew it would come. A patient hunter waiting for his prey. But Tasha, they had been friends since they were 15. 20 years of honest conversations, shared secrets, mutual support. Did all that really mean nothing? On the third day, the doctor authorized discharge. Rest, no exertion, he instructed. If there's dizziness or nausea, come to me immediately, and no stress. Keisha nodded, thinking that her whole life was now one continuous stress. Marcus picked her up from the hospital in a new car, a rental, while their wrecked vehicle was in for inspection. The whole way home, he was especially tender and attentive. I prepared your favorite room, he said. Bought new bedding, soft cotton, and ordered grocery delivery so you wouldn't have to cook. Thank you. You just need to rest and recover. I'll take care of everything else. Everything else, including the inheritance he intended to get. At home, Keisha first asked to shower, locked herself in the bathroom, turned on the water, and finally allowed herself to cry. Tears flowed down her cheeks, mixing with the hot streams, and she bit her lip so as not to scream out loud. Then she cried herself out, washed with cold water, and looked at herself in the mirror. Pale face, dark circles under her eyes, an abrasion on her forehead, but the gaze was different, hard, determined. The gaze of a woman who would not let anyone deceive her again. She developed a plan, simple but effective. First, gather evidence. Second, protect the inheritance. Third, punish the guilty. She started small. While Marcus was at work, she searched his things. In the pocket of his winter jacket, she found a second phone. Cheap. A flip phone, clearly bought specifically for secret negotiations. The battery was dead. Keisha found a suitable charger and hid the phone in her purse. She would study it later. On his laptop, she discovered correspondence with Tasha, cautious, coded, but understandable to those who knew the context. Miss you, waiting to see you. Everything will change soon. The dates began 3 years ago, exactly when her mother first wrote in her diary about her suspicions. 3 years. 3 years they met behind her back, planned, waited. Keisha took screenshots and sent them to her email. Then she erased the traces. She had read enough detective novels to know criminals check browser history. In the evening, Marcus returned from work with a bouquet of roses and a bottle of wine. "Let's celebrate your return home," he smiled. They dined by candlelight, and Keisha looked at her husband through the flame, thinking about how easy it would be to kill him. Just slip something into his wine or push him down the stairs. An accident. He showed her himself how it's done. But she wasn't a killer, unlike him. "You need to sign the inheritance papers," Marcus said over dessert. "The lawyer called, asked when you could come in." "I'll wait a little longer. The doctor said no stress." "It's not stress, just a formality. A couple of signatures and that's it." "Marcus." She put her hand on his palm. "I almost died. Give me time to recover." He looked at her with a long gaze, and Keisha was scared for a second that he understood, that he saw in her eyes what she was so diligently hiding, but he only nodded and smiled. "Of course, honey. Take as much time as you need." At night, she lay awake, listening to his breathing nearby. Now every night turned into torture, sleeping next to a man who wanted her dead. A man who might very well try again. She started locking the bedroom door from the inside, explaining it as fear after the accident. Marcus didn't object, it seemed. He was even glad she was distancing herself, less pretending. A week later, Keisha felt strong enough to act. While Marcus was at work, she went to a lawyer, but not the one her husband knew. Another one, recommended by a colleague from work. "I want to make a will," she said, "and find out what options I have to protect my assets." The attorney, an older woman with a piercing gaze, listened to her carefully. "Do you suspect your husband of dishonest intentions?" "I know for a fact his intentions are dishonest." "Then you need not just a lawyer for the will, but a criminal attorney, possibly the police." "The police won't help me. No evidence." "There's your testimony." "My testimony against his word. He'll say I suffered a head injury and I'm delirious, and they'll believe him." The attorney was silent, tapping her pen on the table. "Okay, let's start with the will. If something happens to you, the property shouldn't go to a person you don't trust." Keisha dictated her will, all property to a charitable foundation. Marcus gets nothing. Tasha, naturally, nothing either. "The will takes effect immediately," said the attorney, "and will be kept in 3 copies, in my archive and with the executor of your choice." Executor? Keisha thought. Who could she trust? No relatives, friends. Did she have friends besides Tasha? There was one person, Aunt May, her mother's old friend, almost a family member. She lived far away. They saw each other rarely, but Keisha knew she could rely on her. "May Galloway," she said, and dictated the address. Leaving the lawyer's office, Keisha felt a strange relief. The first step was taken. Now, whatever happened, Marcus wouldn't get anything. His plan had failed, even if he didn't know it yet. But that wasn't enough. She wanted justice. She wanted him to pay for everything, for the lies, for the betrayal, for the attempted murder, and Tasha, too. Keisha got into the car and took out that flip phone she found in her husband's jacket. The battery was charged, the screen glowed. She opened the contact list. There was only one name. Vixen, Tasha, or someone else. She opened the messages and started reading. The messages on the phone opened Keisha's eyes to the scale of the betrayal. V was Tasha. Foxy. That's what Marcus called her in the texts. An affectionate nickname. Intimate, belonging only to the two of them. Keisha read and felt something dying inside. 3 years of correspondence, declarations of love, plans for the future, complaints about a boring life with Keisha. Marcus wrote about her with contempt, called her a mother hen, a gray mouse, a burden he had to tolerate. Tasha played along, adding her own barbs. "Don't understand how you deal with her, my poor baby. It'll all be over soon." Soon it will all be over. This phrase was repeated again and again, especially often in recent months after Keisha's mother became seriously ill. They waited for Eleanor Vance to die so Keisha would inherit, and then Keisha found a message sent a week before the accident. She signed all the papers, now officially a rich heiress. Time to act. And Tasha's reply, "Are you sure? Maybe wait a bit more." Wait for what? Every day is a risk. What if she decides to make a will, or God forbid gets pregnant? Then everything gets complicated. "Okay, I trust you. Love you." "Love you, Foxy. Soon we'll be together forever." Keisha put the phone down. Her hands were shaking so hard she couldn't hold it. Gets pregnant. They were afraid she would get pregnant because then an heir would appear and the plan would collapse. She remembered how 2 years ago she spoke to Marcus about children. He smiled, nodded, said, "Of course, honey, but let's wait a little longer, get on our feet, save some money." She believed him, thought he was just cautious, responsible, wanted to give the future child the best, and he was just stalling. Now she had evidence, correspondence, messages, murder plans. All this was stored in a small flip phone, but it wasn't enough. A good lawyer could challenge the authenticity of the correspondence, accuse her of fabrication. Something else was needed. Keisha hid the phone in a safe place, a bank safety deposit box she opened in her name. She put a copy of the will and a flash drive with screenshots of the correspondence from Marcus's laptop there too. Now, even if something happened to her, the evidence would remain. In the evening, she called Aunt May. "Keisha, baby," the familiar voice rejoiced. "It's been so long since you called. I heard about Eleanor. Lord rest her soul. I wanted to come to the funeral, but my legs just don't hold me up. Doctors won't let me travel." "I know, Aunt May. Mom told me. How are you feeling?" "Little by little, child, little by little. And how are you? Is that Marcus of yours taking care of you?" Keisha closed her eyes. Aunt May was the only person who remembered her from childhood, the only one she could trust. "Aunt May, I need to talk to you, not on the phone. Can I come over?" A pause, then an anxious voice. "What happened, Keisha? You're scaring me." "I'll come. I'll tell you. Tomorrow, okay?" Aunt May lived 4 hours away in a small town by a lake. Keisha left early in the morning, telling Marcus she was going to the doctor and then shopping. "Don't overexert yourself," he warned. "You still need rest." "I'll be careful." She kissed him on the cheek, a habitual gesture that now caused disgust, and left the house. She drove the rental car carefully, constantly checking the mirrors. Paranoia, possibly, but better paranoia than death. Aunt May's house stood on the edge of town, old wooden, with carved window frames and a snow-covered front yard. The hostess met Keisha on the porch, wrapped in a down shawl. "Come in, child, come in. Tea is already ready." At the table in the warm kitchen, smelling of peach cobbler, Keisha told everything. From the very beginning, Mother's diary, Tasha's message in the middle of the night, the accident, the overheard conversation, the found phone. She spoke for a long time, stumbling, sometimes stopping to catch her breath. Aunt May listened silently, not interrupting, only shaking her head and wiping her eyes with a handkerchief from time to time. "Your mother felt it," she said finally. "She told me, 'May, I don't like this Marcus. His eyes are no good.' I waved it off saying, 'You're exaggerating. He's just a man like any other.' And she kept insisting, 'Look after Keisha if I'm gone.' So here I am looking after you now. Aunt May, I named you executor in the will. If something happens to me, bite your tongue. Nothing will happen to you. If it happens, Keisha continued firmly, you will get access to the safety deposit box. All the evidence is there. Take it to the police. Let justice triumph, at least posthumously. Aunt May took her hands in her wrinkled, warm ones, smelling of cinnamon. Keisha, baby, maybe you should leave, hide somewhere. I have distant kin down south. Nobody will find you. No, I won't hide. I want him to answer for everything. But how? You said yourself the police won't believe it. Keisha sipped her tea, gathering her thoughts. I have a plan. Risky, but it's the only way. She laid out her idea. Aunt May listened, eyes wide. Have you lost your mind? That's dangerous. I know, but there's no other way. And if it doesn't work? Then at least I tried. On the way back, Keisha drove in thought. The plan was crazy. She understood that, but there was nowhere to retreat. Marcus had already tried to kill her once. Sooner or later he would try again. She read about it in the texts. If it doesn't work the first time, we wait and try again. The main thing is patience. Patience. She had patience too. 8 years she had tolerated being next to a man she considered a loving husband. Now she would tolerate a little more, exactly as long as needed for retribution. Returning home, she found Marcus in the living room. He was talking on the phone and, upon seeing his wife, quickly said goodbye. You're early, he said. How is the doctor? Everything is good. Says I'm recovering normally. Wonderful. Maybe then tomorrow we can go to the lawyer? The documents are waiting. Keisha smiled that very smile she practiced all the way from Aunt May's. Yes, I suppose it's time to finish with the formalities. Something flashed in his eyes. Surprise? Joy? Suspicion? Keisha couldn't tell. Excellent, he nodded. I'll call the lawyer, arrange a time. Arrange it. She went up to the bedroom, closed the door, and allowed herself to exhale. The game had begun. Now the main thing was not to make a mistake. That night she dreamed of her mother. Eleanor Vance stood in the middle of the old garden, among snow-covered apple trees, and looked at her daughter with her calm, all-knowing gaze. You'll handle it, Keisha, she said. You are stronger than you think. Keisha woke up with cheeks wet from tears. Outside the window, it was getting light. A new day, the day when everything would start to change. She got up, showered, put on makeup with special care. She wore her mother's favorite dress, the one Eleanor had worn to church, navy blue with a lace collar. It fit perfectly. You look beautiful today, Marcus noticed at breakfast. Want to look dignified. It's an important day, after all. Important? Inheriting, isn't that important? He smiled and covered her hand with his. Of course, honey. Of course. On the way to the lawyer, Keisha looked out the window and said goodbye to her former life, to that naive woman who believed in love and loyalty, to that Keisha who died in a wrecked car on the side of the highway, listening to her husband discuss her death with his mistress. Now she was different, and this new Keisha was going to win. The law office greeted them with the smell of old paper and coffee. The same elderly attorney in thick glasses laid out documents on the table, explaining every point. Keisha nodded, signed, dated. Marcus sat nearby, and she felt his tense anticipation, like a predator before a jump. Congratulations, Mrs. Thorne, the attorney said, gathering the papers. Now you have officially inherited the estate. Thank you. Marcus shook the attorney's hand, hugged his wife around the shoulders. Let's go celebrate. At that restaurant where we celebrated our anniversary? With pleasure. At the restaurant, he ordered champagne, expensive, French, raised a glass, looking Keisha in the eyes. To us, to our future. She clinked with him and took a small sip. Bubbles tickled her nose, but she didn't feel the taste. Marcus, she said, put the glass on the table. I want to tell you something. Yes, honey. I was thinking about our life, about what happened, the accident. It made me rethink a lot. His face became tense. What do you mean? I realized how easy it is to lose everything. Life, the love of close people, and I decided no more secrets between us. Secrets? He laughed nervously. We don't have secrets, do we? Keisha leaned closer, lowering her voice. Then tell me about Foxy. Blood drained from his face. For a second, just for a second, the mask of the ideal husband cracked, and Keisha saw underneath what had been hiding for years: fear, malice, calculating cruelty. I don't understand what you're talking about, he squeezed out. You understand. I found your second phone, Marcus. Read all the texts. 3 years of lies, that's impressive. He was silent. The fingers gripping the stem of the glass turned white. I heard your conversation after the accident, Keisha continued, surprised by her own calmness. She is no longer an obstacle. Remember? Tomorrow I alone will inherit the mother-in-law's estate. Keisha, don't interrupt. You wanted to kill me. You and your mistress, my best friend by the way, planned my death for money. Very romantic. Marcus looked around. The restaurant was half empty. The nearest tables were free. No one heard their conversation. Listen. He leaned forward, and his voice became hard, threatening. I don't know what you imagined after your head injury, but I didn't imagine anything. I have proof. The phone with the texts, screenshots from your laptop, everything is stored in a safe place. Where? Do you really think I'll tell you? They looked at each other across the table, two strangers who had played family for 8 years. What do you want? He asked finally. Justice? Money? Divorce? Speak, what do you want? Keisha shook her head. You don't understand. I want you to pay, you and Tasha, for everything. And how are you going to achieve that? Go to the police? He smirked wryly. They won't believe you. Texts can be faked, and your words are just your words against mine. I know. Then what? Keisha took her phone out of her purse and placed it on the table. This conversation is being recorded. You just admitted the correspondence exists, that the plans exist. That's already something. His face contorted with rage. He reached for the phone, but Keisha was faster. She grabbed it and put it back in her bag. Don't be stupid, she said. We are in a public place. One move from me and the whole staff will come running. Marcus leaned back in his chair, drilling her with his gaze. You've changed, he hissed. You used to be so soft. Before I didn't know my husband wanted to kill me. And what now? Now we will play by my rules. She laid out the conditions. Divorce, quick, without claims to property on his part. He leaves with what he brought into the marriage, which is practically nothing. In return, she doesn't go to the police, and the recording of the conversation remains their little secret. This is blackmail, he hissed. This is justice. You wanted to take everything that belongs to me, including my life. I'm just restoring the balance. And Tasha? I'll deal with Tasha separately. He was silent for a long time, twisting a napkin in his fingers. Keisha saw his brain working, calculating options, looking for a way out. Finally, he looked up. Okay, I agree. Reasonable decision. But note, if this recording surfaces, it won't surface, as long as you fulfill the conditions. They left the restaurant separately. Keisha hailed a taxi and went home to pack her husband's things. By evening, his suitcases were at the door, and the locks were changed. Marcus came for his things silently, took the suitcases, threw the keys on the nightstand in the hallway. You'll regret this, he said in parting. Possibly, but definitely not today. The door closed. Keisha leaned her back against it and slowly slid to the floor. Only now did she allow herself to tremble with her whole body until her teeth chattered. The adrenaline subsided, leaving emptiness and fatigue. But it was a good fatigue, the fatigue of a person who had done something important. The phone rang. Tasha. Keisha looked at the name lighting up and felt a cold wave of anger rising inside. With Marcus, it was easy. He had always been a stranger. She just hadn't noticed it. But Tasha was part of her life for 20 years, and the betrayal of a friend wounded deeper than the betrayal of a husband. She pressed the answer button. Keisha. Tasha's voice rang with tension. "Marcus told me everything. We need to talk." "Come over," Keisha said. We'll talk." Tasha appeared in an hour. Apparently, she had been nearby for a long time, even though she didn't say so. No makeup, hair disheveled, in a hastily thrown-on coat. Keisha saw her like this for the first time. Usually perfect, collected, confident. Her friend looked as if her world had collapsed. "Come in!" Keisha stepped aside, letting her into the house. They went into the living room, sat opposite each other, as they had many times over these 20 years. Only now, an abyss lay between them that was impossible to cross. "Keisha," Tasha began, "I know what you're thinking." "You don't know what I'm thinking. You don't know me at all, as it turns out, and I don't know you either." "That's not true. We've been friends since childhood. You're like a sister to me." "Sisters don't sleep with each other's husbands. Sisters don't plan murders." Tasha flinched as if from a slap. "I didn't want to. It's all Marcus. He what? Forced you? Coerced you? Hypnotized you?" "No, but—" She stumbled, crumpling the edge of her scarf in her hands. "You don't understand. I fell in love for real, for the first time in my life. It was stronger than me." Keisha looked at the woman she considered her best friend and tried to find at least a drop of sympathy in herself. She found none, only cold, ringing emptiness. "Tell me," she said. "Tell me how it started. I want to know." Tasha raised her eyes, red, swollen from tears. 3 years ago. Remember you went away for that art conference? Marcus invited me to dinner, said he wanted advice on a gift for our anniversary. We drank wine, started talking. One thing led to another. And you decided sleeping with my husband was a great idea. No, I didn't plan it. It just happened. 3 years, Tasha. 3 years, it just happened. She was silent, looking at the floor. "Continue," Keisha demanded. "I want to know everything." At first, we thought it was just a fling, entertainment, but then it got serious. Marcus said he loved me, wanted to be with me, but couldn't leave you because I was going to inherit Mother's fortune. Tasha nodded. He said he'd divorce as soon as he got his share, that we'd go somewhere far away, start a new life. I believed him. And then your mother died, and it turned out the inheritance was much bigger than he thought. Marcus changed, became obsessed with this money, said half in a divorce wasn't enough, that he deserved everything, and suggested killing you. Tasha flinched again. Not right away. First just fantasized, like how good it would be if you weren't around. I thought it was just talk. Men sometimes say stupid things without meaning anything serious, and then he started planning for real. And you didn't stop him. I tried. Tasha leaned forward, clutching the armrests of the chair. I said it was madness, that we'd get caught, that I didn't want to be a killer, but he knows how to convince. Said it was the only way, that otherwise we'd never be together, that I had to choose, him or you. And you chose him. Silence was the answer. Keisha stood up and walked to the window, looked at the dark garden, the bare branches of trees, the first stars in the evening sky. Her mother loved this view, said it soothed the soul. You know what's the scariest part? She said without turning around. Not that you wanted to kill me. Not that you betrayed our friendship. The scariest part is that you asked, and if she survives, not that, let's call an ambulance, not what have we done, just what if she survives? Keisha, you wanted to make sure I died. My childhood friend, almost a sister, wanted to make sure I died. I was in shock, didn't realize what I was saying. You realized enough. She turned and looked at Tasha with a long, heavy gaze. 20 years of friendship. Remember how we made a vow in 10th grade? Friends forever, no matter what happens. I kept that note. It's still in the box with keepsakes. You know what I did with it yesterday? Tasha shook her head. Burned it. Watched the paper burn and thought about how easily 20 years of trust burn up. Keisha, please. Tasha slid off the chair onto her knees, reached out her hands. Forgive me, I beg you, forgive me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but you are the only real person in my life. I can't lose you. You already lost me the moment you got into bed with my husband. I'll do anything. Go to the police, testify against Marcus, confess everything. Just don't push me away. Keisha looked at the sobbing woman at her feet and felt nothing. Emptiness, as if the place where their friendship used to live had been burned to the ground, leaving only ash. "Stand up," she said. "Don't humiliate yourself." Tasha stood up, staggering. "You will go to the police," Keisha continued. "Give testimony. Tell everything. How you met, how you planned the accident, how he rigged the car skid, everything down to the smallest detail." Yes, of course. Whatever you say. It's not for me. It's for justice. Marcus must answer for what he did. And Tasha paused. You will answer too. Conspiracy to commit attempted murder is a serious charge, but if you cooperate with the investigation, maybe you'll get a lighter sentence. I'm ready for anything. Good. Tomorrow morning we go to the police together, and now leave. Tasha headed for the door, but stopped on the threshold. Keisha, will you ever be able to forgive me? A long pause, the ticking of the clock in the silence. I don't know, Keisha answered honestly. Possibly in many years, possibly never, but not right now. Right now I can't even look at you. The door closed. Keisha was left alone in the big, empty house. She sat on the sofa and closed her eyes. Tomorrow a new chapter would begin. Police, interrogations, court. It would be hard. But for the first time in a long while, she felt she was controlling her life, deciding herself where to go and what to do. The phone rang. Aunt May. Keisha, baby, how are you? I've been thinking about you all day. I'm okay, Aunt May. Truly okay. Did you manage? Yes, I managed. She told her about the day's events briefly, without excess emotion. Aunt May listened, occasionally gasping and lamenting. Oh, people, she said finally. Ready for anything for money. Good thing your mother doesn't see this. Mom knew, Keisha answered. She felt it, just didn't have time to warn me. Now she is calm up there, knows I handled it. Keisha smiled for the first time in many days. Thank you, Aunt May, for everything. Sleep, child. Tomorrow is a hard day. The following months flew by like a fog. Police, interrogations, confrontations, endless papers and protocols. Keisha went through all of this with a stone face, repeating her story again and again to the investigator, prosecutor, lawyer. Tasha kept her word, gave detailed testimony, told about every meeting with Marcus, every conversation, how he methodically planned the accident. Technical expertise confirmed her words. Traces of tampering were found in the car's braking system. Marcus had cut the brake line so it would burst on a steep turn. The perfect crime, which didn't become perfect only because the victim survived. Marcus was arrested 3 days after Keisha filed the report. He tried to run, bought a plane ticket under a fake name, withdrew all money from his accounts, but didn't get far. He was caught at the airport with a suitcase of cash and a fake passport. At the trial, he behaved as if nothing had happened. Sat in the defendant's dock in an expensive suit with perfectly styled hair and looked at Keisha with that same gaze, warm, loving, full of remorse. Played until the end. I loved my wife, he told the judge. It was a tragic accident. I was framed. But the evidence was irrefutable. Texts from the phone, Tasha's testimony, expert results, the recorded conversation in the restaurant. Guilty on all counts. 15 years in maximum security. Keisha listened to the verdict and felt nothing. Neither joy, nor relief, nor triumph of justice. Only fatigue. Deep, all-consuming fatigue. Tasha received 4 years probation as an accomplice who cooperated with the investigation. She stood in the courtroom, pale and aged, crying silently. When the sentence was announced, she turned to Keisha and whispered with just her lips, "Forgive me." Keisha didn't answer, just stood up and left the room. Spring came suddenly, as if someone flipped a switch, and the gray world suddenly filled with colors. The snow melted, exposing black earth, and a few weeks later the first snowdrops broke through last year's foliage in her mother's garden. Keisha moved there right after the trial, sold the city house. Too many memories, too many lies eaten into its walls, gave the money to charity, keeping only what she got from her mother. The old house accepted her like kin. She walked through the rooms where her childhood passed and gradually learned to live again. Cooked breakfasts in the very kitchen where her mother taught her to bake peach cobbler, read books in the chair by the window where her father once told her fairy tales, worked in the garden, planting flowers her mother loved. Aunt May came every weekend, brought homemade biscuits, cottage cheese, and endless stories about the past, told about Eleanor's youth, her love for her husband, about the hopes and dreams she associated with her daughter. "Your mother would be proud of you," Aunt May said. "You are strong, Keisha, stronger than you think." In the summer, Keisha returned to work. The gallery welcomed her with open arms. Colleagues heard about what happened and treated her with special care. She immersed herself in art headlong, finding solace in it that people couldn't give. Paintings didn't betray, colors didn't lie. In the world of art, everything was honest. Beauty was beauty, pain was pain, and no one pretended to be what they weren't. In the fall, Tasha called. Keisha looked at the name lighting up for a long time before answering. "Keisha." Her former friend's voice was quiet, broken. "I know I have no right to call, but I need to tell you something." "Speak." "I'm leaving far away for good. Here everything is over for me. Work, reputation, life. I'll start over somewhere where no one knows me." Keisha was silent. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Tasha continued. "I know I don't deserve it. Just wanted to say, you were the best thing that happened in my life. Our friendship was the only real thing I had, and I destroyed it with my own hands." "Why, Tasha?" The question escaped on its own. "Why did you do it?" A long pause, then a heavy sigh. "Because I was a fool. Because I believed the fairy tale he told me. Because I envied you, your family, your house, your calmness. You always had everything right, and I was a mess. And when Marcus said he loved me, I grabbed onto it like a drowning woman to a straw. He didn't love anyone, only money. I know now, I know." Silence again. Keisha listened to the breathing in the receiver and thought about how much they had been through together. School years, first crushes, adult disappointments, 20 years of shared history, and all of it crossed out by one betrayal. "Goodbye, Tasha," she said finally. "Goodbye, Keisha. Be happy. You deserve it." The connection cut off. Keisha put the phone down and went out into the garden. The leaves had already turned yellow. The wind carried the smell of smoke and damp earth. Autumn, a time to let go. She let go. A year passed, then another. Life gradually filled with new meaning. Keisha opened a small art school for children from low-income families with the money left from her mother. Named it after Eleanor Vance. Every day she came to the bright classroom that smelled of paint and children's laughter and taught little ones to see the beauty of the world. One winter evening, sorting through her mother's old things, she found a letter, a sealed envelope with the inscription, "Keisha, when I am gone." Her hands shook when she opened the envelope. Familiar handwriting, the smell of Mom's perfume ingrained in the paper. "My beloved daughter," wrote Eleanor Vance. "If you are reading this letter, it means I am no longer around. Don't cry for me. I lived a good life and leave peacefully. I want to tell you what I didn't dare say in life. I always believed in you, in your kindness, in your strength, in your ability to love. These qualities are the most valuable thing you have. Guard them. The world won't always be kind to you. People may betray, deceive, cause pain. But don't let this break you. Don't let evil win. Remain yourself. That bright girl I rocked in my arms 35 years ago. I love you, always loved, and will love from where I am now. Your mom." Keisha read and cried, for the first time in many months, not from pain, not from grief, from love. That love which neither betrayal nor lies nor attempted murder could kill, love that remained with her forever, in this house, in this garden, in these walls, keeping the memory of a happy childhood. Outside the window, snow was falling. Keisha sat in the chair by the fireplace, clutching her mother's letter to her chest, and for the first time in a long while felt peace, real deep peace. She survived. She won. And now she was ready to live on, not for revenge, not for justice, simply to live.